Rikers Island is a place where time freezes, fear breathes, and violence rules without mercy. Every hallway has a ghost. Every cell has a story soaked in blood, betrayal, and survival. And tonight, you're going inside. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us as we step behind the walls of America's most violent jail, a world the public was never meant to see. The boat ride to Rikers Island feels like crossing into another dimension, one where hope dissolves the moment the shoreline disappears behind you. For decades, inmates and staff alike have described the approach as a physical sensation, as if the island itself exerts a gravitational pull, dragging you toward its steel belly whether you want to be there or not. The Department of Correction vessel moves slowly across the East River. The water below is dark, thick, and restless, almost as restless as the men and women being transported. Some stare out the window, jaws clenched, masking terror behind blank expressions. Others keep their eyes pinned to the floor, as if refusing to acknowledge where they are headed might somehow change the outcome. But it never does. The island always wins. As the gates appear in the distance, a hulking structure of razor wire, guard towers, and concrete, the atmosphere changes. Even first-timers feel it. A tightening in the chest. A sudden quiet. A chill that creeps under the skin. Rikers doesn't welcome people, it consumes them. When the vessel docks, the sound of chains, boots, and shouted orders fills the air. The line forms. Shackles clink. The men shuffle forward, each one about to enter a system built not for correction, but for containment. Control. Survival. Inside the intake building, fluorescent lights hum overhead, washing everything in a cold, sickly glow. The floor still smells faintly of bleach, struggling hopelessly against the odors of sweat, fear, and the familiar metallic tinge of old blood. Corrections officers, some bored, some hardened, some visibly angry, process the new arrivals with mechanical efficiency. Photographs. Fingerprints. Strip searches. Bag and tag. A body becomes a number, and a name becomes something that can be easily ignored. This is the true beginning of a Rikers Island sentence, the moment individuality evaporates. But behind the routine lies the truth everyone knows yet rarely admits: Rikers isn't just a jail, it's a battleground. A pressure cooker of gangs, debts, alliances, and vendettas. A place where violence isn't an exception, it's a language. A currency. A way of life. The intake officer in charge today has seen it all. His eyes track every new arrival, calculating instantly who looks weak, who looks dangerous, who looks like they might not survive the week. Some inmates, fresh off the boat, are already sizing each other up. Tattoos map loyalties across their skin. Facial expressions tell stories they'll never say out loud. A young inmate, barely 20, trembles as he steps forward. His crime? A minor charge. His fear? The island itself. "You'll be fine," an officer mutters without looking up, but everyone in the room knows that's a lie. Rikers breaks men stronger than him in days. Others walk with confidence, veterans of the system, familiar with the island's dark rhythm. They know the rules. You don't stare too long. You don't talk too much. And you never, ever show fear. As the detainees are sorted and assigned to housing units, the sound of steel gates slamming shut echoes like a countdown. This is the transition point. Once they cross the threshold into the cell blocks, they enter a world completely governed by an unwritten code, one where the wrong word, the wrong gesture, the wrong ally can get you hurt, hospitalized, or worse. The ferry ride brings them to the island, but once inside the cages of Rikers, it's the inmates who determine whether you walk out alive. And tonight, we follow one of the most volatile environments on the island: housing units where rival gangs operate, guards tread lightly, and the dividing line between order and chaos is razor-thin. Because this is where Rikers shows its true face. And that face is violent. The first night inside Rikers changes a person. Even if they don't realize it at the time, something shifts, subtle, invisible, irreversible. For most, it happens the moment the heavy metal door closes behind them for the very first time. That hydraulic hiss. That final, echoing slam. It's not just a door shutting. It's the world sealing you in. The newly processed inmates are marched down narrow hallways toward their assigned units. The corridors are long, dimly lit, and lined with peeling paint. The air hangs thick with humidity, the kind that clings to your clothes and makes breathing feel like swallowing dust. Each step deeper into the facility feels like descending further into a fortress built on misery. The housing unit they're entering tonight is C-95, one of Riker's most volatile dorm-style setups. No bars. No single cells. Just one massive room packed with bunks, bodies, and tension so sharp it feels like it's cutting the space in half. The doors swing open, and instantly the noise dies down. Dozens of hardened faces turn toward the new arrivals. Some curious. Some hostile. Some calculating. In places like Rikers, silence speaks louder than shouting. The inmates inside the dorm scan the newcomers with the precision of predators sizing up potential threats or potential prey. Tattoos reveal affiliations instantly: Latin kings, Bloods, Trinitarios, Crips, Neaters. Even those without ink can be identified by who they walk beside or who acknowledges them with a nod. Every gesture here has meaning. Every look has weight. A misstep can be the difference between being left alone and being targeted by morning. A correction officer unlocks the gate, pushes the line inside, and steps back immediately. Even guards know they control almost nothing once the inmates cross that threshold. The officer doesn't bother offering advice or warnings. None of it matters here. The unit's own hierarchy will sort out who belongs where. A veteran inmate named Vega sits on a lower bunk near the center of the dorm, his arms crossed, a heavy stare fixed on the newcomers. Everyone knows Vega. He's not the biggest guy in the room, but he's one of the most dangerous. Years on the island have sharpened him into someone who understands the mechanics of survival: intimidation first, violence second, strategy always. His eyes stop on the young inmate from intake, the one who trembled earlier. The kid hesitates at the entrance, gripping his bedroll like it's a lifeline. Vega tilts his head, and the slightest smirk crosses his face. Not a friendly one. More like the look a wolf gives when it spots an injured animal limping behind the herd. The kid senses it immediately. His breathing quickens. He swallows hard. Another inmate, taller and broad-shouldered, bumps him from behind. "Move," he growls. Not a shout. Not a shove. Just enough to remind him he has no place here yet. No identity. No allies. As the lights flicker overhead, something that happens far too often, everyone returns to their routines. Some play cards on makeshift tables. Some huddle in small circles, whispering about debts, supplies, and old grudges. Others sharpen toothbrush handles into points, their movements slow and deliberate, crafting the tools they hope they'll never need but know they probably will. The correction officers retreat to their post outside the dorm, separated by thick plexiglass. They watch the unit, but they don't intervene unless blood spills or weapons show. Even then, response times vary from seconds to minutes, depending on how the officers feel about the inmates involved. Inside Rikers, help is never guaranteed. Inside Rikers, you learn to be your own help. Lights out approaches, and with it come the whispers. The rumors. The warnings exchanged between bunks. Someone mentions a fight brewing between two gangs over control of the phones. Someone else talks about a stabbing from the night before, how quickly it happened, how the officers didn't realize what was going on until they saw the blood pooling on the floor. The kid manages to find an empty bunk in the corner. It's not ideal. Corners mean no escape routes. No one watching your back. But it's open, and open space is rare. As he lies down, staring at the cracked ceiling, he finally understands. This isn't jail. This is a war zone disguised as one. And here, the first night isn't meant for sleeping. It's meant for listening. For learning. For surviving long enough to see the sunrise. Because at Rikers Island, the first night is always the quietest. And the quiet never lasts. Rikers Island doesn't hand out rulebooks. There are no guides, no manuals, no orientation videos explaining how not to get stabbed before lunch. The only rules here are unwritten, learned through observation or through pain. Most inmates figure them out the hard way. A few don't get the chance at all. By sunrise, the dorm is already awake. Not because the correction officers announced morning chow, but because the noise of the unit never really stops: shuffling feet, coughing, whispered arguments, metal scraping against concrete. The young inmate from last night sits up slowly, eyes heavy, neck stiff from sleeping on a mattress thinner than cardboard. He barely slept, jolting awake every time someone walked past his bunk. In Rikers, vulnerability is a scent. And predators smell it instantly. The dorm begins its morning movement ritual. Men line up for the phones, though everyone knows only certain people control them. Others gather near the showers, another place where ambushes are common. The kid watches it all unfold, unsure of where to stand or what to do. Every action feels dangerous. Every choice feels like it could spark conflict. That's when Vega approaches. He walks with a deliberate slowness, like he owns every square inch of the unit. And in many ways, he does. He stops in front of the kid's bunk and stares down at him with the kind of expression that reveals absolutely nothing and yet reveals everything. "You knew?" Vega asks, though he already knows the answer. The kid nods. "You got people in here?" Another shake of the head. Vega clicks his tongue. A disappointing sound. People without people don't last long on Rikers. The kid doesn't understand the politics yet, but Vega doesn't need him to. He's already made his assessment. "You need to learn the rules," Vega says finally. "Not the officer rules. Those don't mean shit. I'm talking about survival rules." The kid swallows hard. "What rules?" Vega crouches slightly, voice dropping low so only the kid can hear. "Rule 1, he says. Don't stare at anyone for too long. Guys in here think eye contact means challenge. You challenge the wrong one, you bleed." He holds up 2 fingers. "Rule 2. Don't ask questions about charges. Some men lie, some brag, some get angry. You never know who's sensitive about what." A 3rd finger goes up. "Rule 3. Don't use the phones unless someone offers. If you try to take a phone without permission, you're basically asking to go home in a body bag." The kid nods quickly, absorbing every word. Vega leans in closer. "Rule 4. Never turn your back in the showers. Ever." He pauses. "And Rule 5, if someone offers you protection, know that you owe them something. Nothing on Rikers is free. Not safety. Not food. Not breathing space." The kid tenses. "Are you offering me protection?" Vega smirks. "I'm offering you information. Protection's a whole different conversation." Before the kid can respond, a sudden commotion erupts near the corner of the dorm. 2 inmates, both muscular and heavily tattooed, lunge at each other with explosive force. One swings a sock weighted with batteries inside, a common and brutal weapon. The other counters with a razor embedded in a toothbrush handle. The fight is fast. Violent. Silent in the way all serious fights inside Rikers are silent, only breathing, grunting, and the sickening thuds of impact. The officers outside the plexiglass watch for a moment, then slowly hit the alarm. They don't rush in. They know better. Entering too early could get one of them stabbed. Entering too late only means the inmates finish what they started. Blood splatters onto the concrete. The razor catches someone's forearm. The battery sock cracks against someone's jaw. The dorm erupts into controlled chaos as everyone moves back just enough to avoid involvement, but close enough to watch. The kid freezes in place, eyes wide. Vega doesn't even flinch. "Rule 6, he says calmly, watching the violence unfold. "Mind your business. Unless someone comes for you, stay out of everything." The officers finally storm into the unit, shields raised, batons out. They break up the fight with aggressive shouts and heavy strikes. Both inmates are dragged out, leaving a trail of red behind them. The doors slam again, and the dorm returns to its tense equilibrium. Vega turns back to the kid. "You see," he says. "This is Rikers. Every day is a test. You pass, you live. You fail." He doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't have to. The kid nods slowly, breathing uneven. "Good," Vega says. "Now get up. Day's just starting." Because inside Rikers Island, surviving the day isn't a guarantee. It's an achievement. In Rikers Island, power doesn't come from badges or titles. It comes from whispers, alliances, and the quiet influence of men who rarely raise their voices. While correction officers enforce order on paper, the true balance of control tilts toward the shadows, toward inmates who understand the complex ecosystem of fear, respect, and leverage. By mid-morning, the dorm is buzzing with a kind of electricity that newcomers can't quite interpret. Something is happening, something shifting beneath the surface. Meal trays clatter, men shuffle between tables, but the room feels heavier than yesterday. Veterans feel it instantly. The kid feels it too, like a storm gathering behind closed doors. At breakfast, he sits alone, picking at watery eggs and stale bread. He keeps his head down, but it doesn't matter. He can feel eyes on him. Everyone watches new faces, not out of curiosity, but calculation. New faces are unpredictable. New faces create opportunity. New faces create problems. Vega sits across the room surrounded by his circle, a small but loyal group of men who orbit him like planets around a sun. They don't speak loudly, but people listen when they talk. Vega runs his corner of the dorm the same way a chess master runs the board, slowly, deliberately, with moves planned days ahead. Today, he's watching the room with more intensity than usual. His fingers tap rhythmically against the table, eyes shifting between different inmate groups, each one representing a gang, a faction, or a loose alliance built on survival. The Bloods have their cluster. The Trinitarios gather near the phones. A handful of independent inmates, men with no affiliations, sit isolated, aware that they walk a thin line in a place built on collective strength. Then there's the new problem. A transfer is coming. The rumor started early. Someone heard it from a CO on the night shift. Someone else confirmed it when they saw extra officers gathering near the entrance. Transfers could mean anything: new enemies, new leadership struggles, new claims on resources. But this one is different. The name whispered through the dorm is one that even tough inmates flinch at. Mendoza. A high-ranking Trinitario known for orchestrating violence with surgical precision. He's not the biggest or the loudest, but he's a strategist, dangerous in a way that transcends brute force. His arrival in a dorm already overflowing with tension is like tossing gasoline onto a smoldering fire. The kid doesn't know who Mendoza is, but he can sense the unease creeping through the room. He notices the way the Bloods shift positions, the way Vega's group tightens formation, the way independent inmates suddenly stick closer to walls. The whispers grow louder as the moment approaches. Why they moving him here? Too many Trinis already. This place is gonna explode. The correction officers appear at the dorm entrance, their posture different, alert, tense. The plexiglass door unlocks, screeches open, and in steps Mendoza. He's calm. Too calm. His presence feels like a needle dragging across glass. He takes only a few steps inside before stopping, eyes scanning the room with clinical coldness. The tattoos on his arms are unmistakable, dense patterns of Dominican symbols and coded references only gang members understand. No one approaches him. Not yet. This is the observation phase. He needs to see who's who, which power blocks exist, and where his influence will fit or force its way in. Vega stands slowly. The two men lock eyes across the room. There's no hostility. There's no friendliness. Just recognition, two predators assessing each other's reach. The kind of stare that reveals nothing but promises everything. The kid watches from a distance, anxiety tightening around him like a rope. What's happening? He whispers to an older inmate beside him. The man shakes his head with a humorless smirk. Politics, he says. Moves get made before fists do. Mendoza walks to an empty bunk, sets down his bag roll, and sits. Within minutes, two Trinitarios gather near him, leaning in close. They speak quietly, glancing around the dorm, clearly receiving instructions. Something is shifting. And Vega sees it. He gathers his closest men and moves to the far side of the dorm. They form a loose semicircle, heads bent, voices low. The kid watches Vega's eyes, steady, calculating, unafraid. This is a negotiation of power. A silent battle long before a real one erupts. When the COS call for midday movement, the dorm empties slowly. But something else happens, something subtle. People walk in new patterns. Phone lines shift. Seating arrangements change. Territories redraw themselves in real time. A new player has entered the board. And everyone is adjusting. The kid feels the weight of it all. Rikers is no longer just terrifying, it's confusing. Chaotic. A living organism with rules he barely understands. Later, as the dorm settles into afternoon rhythm, Vega passes by the kid's bunk. He stops, just for a moment, and says, "Rule 7. Always know when the balance changes." The kid frowns. "How do I know?" Vega's eyes narrow slightly. "You don't. Not at first. But if you miss it, you'll learn the hard way." He taps the metal frame of the bunk once, sharp, final, and walks away. Because in Rikers Island, surviving the violence is only half the battle. Surviving the politics is the other half. Afternoons on Rikers Island have a strange rhythm, like the calm between two storms. A few hours of uneasy quiet that everyone knows won't last. It's during this time that the real tensions brew, hidden beneath small conversations, strategic glances, and shifts in movement patterns. The kind of pressure that doesn't explode immediately, but builds, silently, relentlessly. The kid sits on his bunk, watching the unit with new eyes. After Vega's warning about the balance shifting, he pays closer attention, though he still doesn't fully understand what he's seeing. The dorm feels different. The atmosphere is tighter, heavier, like an overloaded wire humming with dangerous current. Mendoza's arrival has tipped the scales. The Trinitarios move with renewed confidence, forming small clusters, whispering in corners, taking up more space near the phones. The Bloods aren't retreating, but they're definitely reassessing. Vega's group, a mixed alliance of independents and quiet loyalists, watches everything with the precision of snipers. The kid quickly learns something important. Not all power is loud. Sometimes the most dangerous man in the room is the quiet one. Mendoza hasn't raised his voice once. He hasn't threatened anyone. He hasn't even stood up since arriving. But his influence spreads like smoke, visible only to those who know how to watch the air. Later in the day, the correction officers announce recreation movement. The dorm reacts instantly, lining up at the gate. Rec isn't just exercise. It's opportunity. It's communication. It's survival. The kid lines up too, but Vega steps in front of him. "You're not going," he says flatly. The kid pauses. "Why?" Vega leans in, his voice sharp and low. "You're not ready. Rec is where all the dumb stuff happens. Fights. Stabbings. Jump-ins. Jump-outs. You think you understand this place?" He shakes his head. "You don't. Not enough to walk into the yard without someone watching your back." The kid swallows hard. "So what do I do?" "Stay in the dorm. Keep your head down. And learn." The officers begin moving inmates out. The line passes by the plexiglass exit, and immediately the dorm becomes quieter, emptier, but not safer. Only a handful remain inside, a couple of older inmates, some who are sick or injured, and a few who simply don't want the trouble that comes with recreation. The kid sits at a table near the back, trying to avoid drawing attention. The absence of noise makes him more aware of every sound, dripping water from the showers, the distant echo of other units moving, the buzz of fluorescent lights flickering overhead. That's when he notices two inmates whispering aggressively by the supply closet. Their voices are low but tense, eyes darting toward the exit to make sure the cops aren't looking. The kid isn't close enough to hear everything, but he catches fragments. "Tonight. Mendoza's orders. Phones." Vega won't see it coming. His stomach drops. Something is brewing. Something violent. He doesn't know whether to move or stay still. If he gets closer, someone might see him listening. If he walks away, he might look suspicious. Every choice is dangerous. He stays still. After a few minutes, the men disappear into the bathroom, another place where plans are formed away from the officer's view. The kid glances toward the CO station, but they're barely paying attention, chatting among themselves as if they're anywhere but a facility known for explosions of violence. When recreation ends and the inmates return, the energy shifts again. A wave of bodies floods the dorm, sweaty, loud, restless. Someone's bleeding from a split lip. Someone else argues with a CO about being pushed. The kid spots Vega immediately walking in calm, composed, but with sharper eyes than earlier. He sees the kid, senses something's wrong, and walks over. What happened? Vega demands. The kid hesitates. I overheard something. Two guys talking near the closet. Something about tonight. Something about you. Vega's jaw sets. His expression doesn't change much, but his eyes harden. Who? He asks. The kid describes them, one short with a green bandana, one tall with thick braids. Vega knows exactly who they are. Trini's, he mutters. Mendoza's boys. He sighs once, deeply, not out of fear, but calculation. All right, Vega says. Rule 8. Never ignore warnings. Even from people who don't know what they're doing. He pats the kid's shoulder once, surprisingly gentle, and walks off to gather his crew. They form a tight circle, all their faces serious. The kid watches from his bunk, heart thudding. Voices rise slightly, though he can't make out the words. Strategies are being formed. Defense lines drawn. Because tonight, something is going to happen. Something unavoidable. Rikers Island doesn't let tension sit quietly for long. Eventually, it explodes. And when it does, everyone gets caught in the blast. As the steel doors close on another day inside Rikers Island, one truth becomes painfully clear: violence isn't an accident here. It's woven into the walls, carved into the culture, and fed by a system that has failed from the ground up. Every inmate, every officer, every shadowed corner carries a story, and many will never be told. Some survive. Some break. Some disappear into the cracks of the island, forgotten by the outside world. But every moment behind those bars reminds us why Rikers stands as one of the most feared institutions in America, an island built not just on land, but on decades of chaos, corruption, and human suffering. If this journey inside the gates shook you, if it opened your eyes, if you want more untold truths from the darkest corners of our justice system, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another deep dive into the hidden world of crime, power, and survival. This is not just a story. This is a warning. And Rikers Island is far from done revealing its secrets. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. And stay curious.